When a crossover is said to cater to those who have an active lifestyle, what exactly does that mean? Active means engaging or ready to engage in energetic pursuits. But how does that translate to the way you interact with a vehicle? Is it in the way the vehicle accelerates? Perhaps the way that it shifts? Or perhaps that's felt in the way that it turns? Or simply the way that it rides? It might even be all of the above. But let's find out by taking a closer look at the Subaru XV. The Subaru XV is a subcompact crossover. It's essentially an Impreza on stilts. This particular variant we have here is the Subaru XV 2-liter IS with Eyesight. And based on price and class, this competes with the likes of the Mazda CX-30. But as you can see, this sports a more rugged design to further suit that active lifestyle. The Subaru XV was first introduced back in 2012. This is the second generation one, which was first introduced in 2017. However, this gets a few upgrades for 2021, starting off with a redesigned front grille. You also get a new front bumper and updated fog light garnish. And to further accentuate that this thing is built for the great outdoors, the body cladding up front has what's supposed to emulate a front skid plate. And to further show you that this thing isn't afraid to get dirty, you also get headlight washers. Speaking of lights, the DRLs, fog lamps, and headlights are all LED. This even has an auto leveling feature and is steering responsive, which means the beam will change direction based on your steering inputs. Along the side, to give it more of an SUV vibe, you get this black body cladding, which isn't overdone. There's also roof rails that really stand out. The side mirrors are power folding and come with repeaters, and I like how it's connected to the door as opposed to the A-pillar to further improve visibility. And something I haven't seen in a while, particularly for modern-day cars, is a quarter-glass window. Now, the body lines of the Subaru XV are quite subtle, yet they really do wonders to give the car more muscle, as far as aesthetics are concerned. The 2021 model also gets redesigned 18-inch wheels, which are wrapped in Bridgestone tires. Behind these wheels are ventilated discs for the front and the rear. Now, despite being a second-generation model, one thing I appreciate about this design is how it didn't veer too far off from the previous model, which also means that this will age quite well. Now, while we're here, I want to take a moment to show you how wide these doors open. You'll see that they open pretty wide, which will really aid in terms of ingress and egress. At the back, you get horizontal LED taillights and what's supposed to look like another skid plate. You also get proximity sensors and a reverse camera. The exhaust tips are also concealed pretty well. Now, this tailgate is manually operated, but that's fine because it's actually pretty light to open and close. Opening the trunk reveals 385 liters of trunk space. Now, folding the seats gives you 1,220 liters, which will also give you a flat floor with hardly any load lift. And I think that's really one of the selling points of a crossover, is that you get so much space and versatility without having to deal with the burdens that come with having a bigger vehicle. Now, let's go check out the rest of the interior. Well, right off the bat, I can tell you that this interior feels really snug, and I mean that as a huge compliment because it just fits like a glove. Now, it is a premium feeling interior, but it leans more towards functionality over the artistic side. And again, I mean that as another compliment. Because the design is straightforward, yet everything feels so well within reach and easy to operate. Everything is logically laid out. Now, the plastics are fairly soft, but more importantly, they're even softer on all the touch points. And you get these carbon fiber accents and orange stitching to really give it a more upscale vibe. But I really think the highlight here, and not all cars can do this well, is the fact that this cockpit seems to wrap itself around you. The seats are extremely comfortable, yet the bolstering isn't overly aggressive. And they're power adjustable, and there's enough adjustability for you to get that perfect driving position. I also love the fact that this is a tilt and telescopic steering wheel, and you can get the tiller really close to you. Now, the instrument cluster is mostly analog, but you do get a colored LCD display in the middle to still give it a bit of a modern touch. But aside from that, you also get this multi-information display on top of the infotainment system, which is a Subaru trait. Now moving on to the infotainment system, you get this 8-inch touchscreen which is nicely integrated. It also comes standard with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay and a 360 camera, which is a really nice touch. But what I like about it even more is the fact that you get physical knobs and buttons, which makes operating it a breeze. Now moving on to the climate control system, it's fully automatic and it also has physical knobs and buttons. Now your AC settings are projected on the multi-information display in the middle, which is also a really nice touch because it allows you to adjust the settings while keeping your eyes on the road. In terms of storage, you get 2 cup holders, a cubby underneath this armrest, and when you open this cubby, you'll be happy to know that you get 2 charge ports and a 12-volt socket. There are also pockets on both doors with bottle holders. I also like how the glove box is nicely dampened. You also get an auto-dimming rear view mirror. Now the beltline is relatively high and the windows are quite small, but visibility is still pretty good and it also feels airy and spacious in here thanks to the sunroof. Now the rear seats are equally comfortable and you do get a decent amount of head and leg room. However, there aren't much toys back there. There's no charge ports, no air vents, but you do get a center armrest with cup holders. But really, we can't discuss a car that caters to one with an active lifestyle if we're just here in the showroom. So I think it's time to get this out on the road. Under the hood of the Subaru XV, you get a naturally aspirated 2-liter boxer engine with 4 cylinders. And it pumps out 154 horsepower and 196 Newton meters of torque. Now, peak power comes in higher up on the rev range, so you will have to rev this thing out to really get the most out of it. But the car does feel light on its feet. It's not the fastest thing out there, but it does feel nimble. Now, the engine is mated to a CVT, which Subaru calls the lineartronic CVT. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but the word linear, to me, means that you have to keep feeling the power as you get higher up in the rev range. And in that regard, it really delivers. Now, there's no denying that it is a CVT, but that droning is mitigated by the fact that you always feel the pull, especially when you get higher up in the rev range. Now, when you pop it into manual mode, you can shift gears manually, although they are simulated gears, but it comes pretty close to the real thing. So right now, I'm on manual mode. Gonna downshift. And you see that it shifts simulated gears pretty close to the real thing. As far as CVTs are concerned, this is one of the better ones out there. Now, when it comes to handling, the car does feel planted, and it is quick to shift direction. And we can attribute that to the fact that this has a boxer engine to give it a lower center of gravity. Plus the fact that the wheelbase is relatively short, so it feels very nimble. Steering is also very direct and precise. It's nicely weighted and it responds pretty swiftly to your steering input. I like the fact that you don't have to turn the wheel too much before you feel it turning. There's that level of directness and connectedness with the car. Now, in terms of ride comfort, this comes with McPherson struts and a double wishbone suspension at the back. And that's rare for subcompact crossovers, which typically have torsion beam suspension. So in terms of ride quality, this is a notch above the rest, especially in terms of suspension compliance and just how planted the car feels around the bends. Now, like I mentioned earlier, you get 4-wheel ventilated disc brakes for the front and rear. So that means even under heavy braking, the car never nosedives. It always stops with urgency and the brake feel feels well modulated, which gives you utmost control. Now earlier, as I was driving this thing around, I just came to realize that I wasn't even on sport mode. I was on intelligent mode, which is supposed to optimize fuel efficiency. Okay, now that I have it on sport mode, let's see how this thing accelerates. So the power definitely comes in past 4,000 RPM, but once you get past that mark, it feels very swift. So as far as an engaging drive is concerned, yes, this definitely delivers. But this doesn't only cater to the driver. This will also cater to all the passengers because, like I said, the ride is extremely comfortable. And NVH is also pretty good. Road and wind noise is actually very minimal, even at high speed. So the main benefit here is that you get the performance and capabilities of an SUV without having to deal with something that's so bulky. And as a subcompact crossover, this is still fairly light. This only weighs in at 1,445 kilograms, even with its all-wheel drive system. And that's pretty light for something with all-wheel drive. In fact, this is one of the lightest crossovers with all-wheel drive in its class. But what really sets this apart is the fact that it has Eyesight, which is a host of driver's aids and safety features that's unmatched in this segment. It includes features like pre-collision braking and throttle management. This sends you a warning and can even apply the brakes or control the throttle to avoid a collision. You also get lane departure and sway warning, which alerts you if you veer off your path. And then there's adaptive cruise control and lead vehicle start, which maintains your distance from the vehicle in front of you. It also alerts you when traffic starts moving during standstill situations. The Subaru XV IS with Eyesight can be yours for 1,908,000 pesos. And I know that may seem steep for a subcompact crossover, but let's not forget that this has a symmetrical all-wheel drive system, not to mention driver's aids and safety features that are simply unparalleled in this class.